up, ready to fill in if needed for Dylan. In fact, I think Gary and I agree that we'd play TJ over almost any of the Nebraska quarterbacks in recent years. But we have been pumping the brakes on the Lateef over Raiola hype train ever since it started. With him starting, if he has to fill in for Raiola going forward.
I'll answer them backwards. I think you have a chance to win out. I mean, I think you have a chance to win out regardless, but I think if you know going into the week that he's going to be your guy and he's getting the first team reps and more involved with the game plan, and also for the, for Holgerson and the coaches to know, okay, we can call some things with this guy that we can't with Raiola, but there's also things he can't do that Raiola can do. And you kind of alter your game plan accordingly. It wasn't just Lateef getting thrown into the mix and he's got to kind of figure it out. The coaches are kind of in the same boat. You have a guy who doesn't seem to have the playbook as down pat as Raiola. You have a guy that doesn't seem to be as good in the pre-snap reads, and whether it's the liberties, so to speak, to check in and out of plays, or the inability, whichever one it is, it's different. So there's an adjustment for your quarterback that's going in. There's an adjustment for your play caller, and I would imagine for some of the guys around them. I think a lot of people had in their minds that when Lateef came in, it was going to be RG3 type. Like he's going to take off and make everybody look bad and have this blazing speed and tuck the ball and run for 40 yards at any given time. And as much as I think Lateef is a dual threat quarterback, I don't think he's that level of a runner. But that being said, you can implement some run game with him where you can't with Raiola. So I understand the knee jerk reaction when fans go, well, this guy's getting sacked, so put the guy in that can run more. So it seems like it makes sense. But you saw why he's the backup. He's not as comfortable in the offense. He's not as comfortable under pressure. He was real quick to run. One of the design runs for him, he did like one of the most laziest fakes, like he was going to throw and ran, like he telegraphed the run. But that being said, the next time they dialed up that play, he did a good job of looking like he was going to drop back and then tucking it and going on the draw. So I think if you prep him for the games and he knows he's prepping for the games, he's not prepping to stand on the sideline all game long, you get a different outcome. You get a different look from him. As far as the narrative from people that he needs to be an over Raiola, I think it proved we had a two-score lead. They had to get a touchdown, an extra point just to tie it. So I mean, it's not like, hey, go in and come from behind and win us this game, or the Minnesota situation where everything was going wrong and you're expecting this freshman to go in and fix everything. It was about as good of a scenario as you could come up with for him to go in a need situation, not a want because of the way the game's going, but like we don't have a choice. We need him to go in. You're in a good spot. I feel like the one thing I will kind of agree with most people on the other side is that you go for it on that fourth down instead of kicking. Maybe that changes things. It's not a given you're going to score a touchdown just because you get that first down. You still got a ways to go. So I don't know that I learned a lot, to be honest with you, man. I've been saying from the beginning there's a huge difference in going in when you have a 4 possession lead over Houston Christian and everything's working for you, as opposed to going in against USC and the number one offense on a prime time, night game with a sellout crowd. And it's just that type of an environment. You know what I mean? It was very similar to me in a way of Jeff Sims with his first start being that type of an environment in Minnesota. Granted, this was a home game, but I mean, the dude's a freshman. It's not like he's been on the team and knows the playbook inside and out and has a lot of chemistry with the other guys on the squad. It showed, like all of those things showed, but he has the skill set to carry the load for a while and obviously to develop and become really good. I don't think he's there yet. I don't think anybody was expecting him to be there yet with Raiola. Kind of a given foregone conclusion that he's going to be the guy. But I think he needed that. I think that type of kind of go drink from the fire hose and figure it out, as long as it doesn't ruin him, which I didn't get the vibe from the press conference afterwards when he's talking about, I got to be better. I got to do this. I did this. And like I said, there was times within the game that we saw little bits of improvements from previous mistakes, but that's not the stage. That's not the place where you want to be learning and figuring it out. So I think he's going to be fine long term. I'm very confident he's going to be fine long term and be a very, very good quarterback. To your point, we take him over most other quarterbacks. He's higher rated coming in than most quarterbacks. Like that's what Rule's doing. He's bringing in guys that are at least coming in better on paper, and take that for what it's worth. Doesn't matter until they get on the field, but on paper, better than what we've been bringing in as our starters in years past. So I think it's a tough ask for a freshman to be in that situation and win the game. But I think he has the tools, both mentally and physically, to go through a full practice week, game preparation, taking the snaps as the QB1, and go out and be able to perform for you and allow your coordinator to open up the offensive playbook a little bit more. Especially with we're not gonna see a USC type team again. We'll see different matchups. We'll see more physical and grind you out type teams, especially with Iowa. But I don't know that he would need to play that long, depending on what we end up hearing from Raiola. But it's just there's a reason there's backups and starters and third stringers and scout guys. So obviously we'd like Raiola to be 100% healthy coming back, and I'm speaking for us, not everybody, because I know that there's mixed feelings across the board. But do you think it makes these games way tougher, a little tougher? Give them a week of prep, not a big deal. What's your stance on it?
I feel like it puts everything back up in the air, but that could be a good thing. We don't know how these games are going to go. We don't know what the offense is really going to look like because you would think it's going to have to be altered. But that could be a great thing because he's so much more of a runner. I mean, he looked really good running the ball. He looked like they had no answer for his keepers. And the teams that we're facing ahead, UCLA, Penn State, and Iowa, let's take UCLA first. They don't have really anything on video to watch of us with a quarterback run game. Zero. Zilch from Raiola. So I think it could be to our benefit that everything's up in the air and you don't know what you're going to expect. We might see actual option plays being run. I think it'll be more like zone read and stuff like that, but effective zone read with big, pretty good. I thought his throws looked decent. And Lord knows that those USC defenders were licking their chops when they saw a true freshman. That you could see they perked up. They started playing with a much higher intensity when they knew that they were going after a freshman.
Yeah, and I think that the running thing, I think, can also be a problem because there was a lot of. I felt like when he got the ball, it was almost like he was waiting to run if he needed to. If there wasn't a clear cut, this is my read, and he was ready to go. Or if that read wasn't there, he would go. And a couple times he just threw the ball at the guy, whether he was covered or not. I think a little calmness. I don't want him to end up if we need him for the next game or even two, depending on how bad Riola's ankle is. I don't want it to turn into a Michael Vick situation where he takes a snap and he's pretty much ready to run. I like that as a weapon. But I also think as you go down the stretch, if we do end up with him for a game or two, you've got the whole questionable or game time decision that you can use so that you get to where teams don't know if they're prepping for a guy that likes to run and can run, or if you're prepping for a guy who is going to check in and out of plays and look to throw the ball and move the ball, into Emmett's hands more. But I think that's going to, by default, make them try to put the ball in Emmett's hands more. So, I mean, we might even see a little bit more of him getting after it, getting loose. But as far as Lateef himself goes, this little half, the snippet we got to see of him is just it's kind of like you're out shopping and you're in the mall and you walk by a storefront and you look in the window and you see what they have to offer. You don't really I don't think that's what we're gonna have, between, like I said, the game preparation, the things that they'll be able to do in the offense with him. I think it'll only get better. And I think the competition some of the defenses might be a little tougher, but I think that to your point, look what UCLA did after they fired all their coaches. Like nobody really knew how to game plan for him because they changed things up. They let the quarterback utilize his talents a little bit more, started doing some different things. That's really tough when you're basing your practice week off of tape of what your opponent does. So I think it can be a benefit. I hope it doesn't become a hindrance because he wants to run so much. I don't think it will, but they've got to work with him and get the passing game for sure in different aspects opened up, whatever it is pertaining to his comfort level. But I think we'll be fine, man. I think we could be in a lot worse situation as far as if we had Royal and didn't have Lateef, and you've got to push somebody else in. Or you look what happened when we couldn't use Sims because he couldn't field a snap and he was fumbling and throwing picks and everything. We didn't really have a legit quarterback to go to. He tried going to Purdy. He was having some of the same problems. He ended up with Harburg, which was pretty much just a run game, just a handoff and run or the quarterback run. I don't think we're going to be in that situation. And I think the more snaps he gets in actual games and really going into the game knowing he's playing, I think will make a huge difference for him.